The message came in while Ben Carter was cleaning coolant filters for 3 hours. His boss's voice came through the comm system, sharp and urgent. "Stop what you're doing, Carter. The administration wants you. Now." Ben took off his work gloves and looked at the greasy cloth. He had worked maintenance on Threshold 7 for 3 years and had never been called to administration. No one in maintenance ever got called there unless something really bad had happened. The walk through the station seemed to take longer than usual. Ben walked past the cafeteria where workers from a dozen different species ate their lunches. He nodded to Rita, who worked in engineering, and she looked at him with interest. She could tell something was wrong too. The administration building had shiny floors and soft lighting, which was very different from the dirty hallways Ben was used to. Without saying a word, the receptionist, a Valorian with pale blue skin, pointed him to the director's office. Ben's stomach got tight. Thauron, the station director, sat behind a huge desk with his 4 arms crossed in front of him. Ben had learned that this was a Valorian sign of extreme discomfort. The director's neck frills were pressed against his throat. He wouldn't look Ben in the eye. "Mr. Carter. Thanks for coming." Thauron's voice was weak. "Please take a seat." Ben sat down. "What is this about? Did I make a mistake while fixing something?" "No, nothing like that." Thauron brought up a holographic screen. "The Valorian High Council has chosen you for a special job." Ben blinked. "The High Council? Why would they even know I'm here?" "Because you're a person." Thauron finally looked him in the eye. "Zone 12 has been closed for 3,821 years. Something inside needs to be fed. The council has decided that people are acceptable for this job." The words hung in the air like a bad smell. People at the station had been talking about Zone 12 in hushed tones. It was in the oldest part where no one went. Some of the older workers said it was cursed. "Okay." Ben spoke in a calm voice. "You mean disposable." Thauron's frills shook with guilt, but he didn't deny it. "The mechanism for feeding is automatic. You just need to turn it on. Go in, push the buttons and leave. The whole thing should take no more than 5 minutes." "What's inside?" "That's secret." "But you still want me to go in." "The High Council says so. They've looked over your file. You have worked with animals from Earth before. You stay calm when things get tough." "You are." Thauron had a hard time finding the right words. "We think you're the best candidate." Ben thought about pushing back, but he knew how this worked. People were still new to the galaxy. It had only been 17 years since Earth joined the Council. When the Valorians and other old powers asked for things, people usually did what they asked. That's how you made friends. That's how you got people to respect you. That's what the diplomats said, at least. "Okay," Ben said. "When?" "Now." Thauron led him through the station, going deeper into areas that Ben had only seen on maintenance maps. With each turn, the hallways got older. The lights got dimmer because backup systems that had been running for hundreds of years were still working. Other animals rushed past them without looking at them, as if they knew where they were going and didn't want to be a part of it. Ben didn't know what the writing on the walls here said. Languages that are no longer spoken. The writing looked like warnings and the symbols were sharp and harsh. He also saw pictures that were carved right into the metal. People running. Figures going down. "A big dark thing is chasing you." "Happy place," Ben said under his breath. Thauron didn't say anything. They got to a door that Ben had never seen before. Huge, at least 15 feet tall, and made of a black metal that looked like it absorbed light instead of reflecting it. There were Valorian glyphs all over it, and they glowed with a weak, pulsing energy. Ben didn't have to read the language to get the message. This door was supposed to stay shut. Thauron pressed a keycard into Ben's hand and said, "The feeding mechanism is just inside." His 4 arms were shaking. "Turn it on and leave right away. Don't look around. Don't touch anything else. And whatever you do, don't try to talk to the thing inside." "What kind of animal are we talking about?" "One that was thought to be too dangerous to move when we left this area." Thauron took a step back to get away from the door. "But it still needs to eat. Every 1,000 years or so, the automated systems break down and someone has to turn them on by hand. This time it's you." Ben looked at the door and then at his boss again. "Has anyone ever gone in there and not come back out?" Ben knew everything after Thauron paused before answering. "All of the previous attendants did their jobs well." "That's not what I wanted." Thauron didn't say anything. Ben took a deep breath and walked up to the door. When his hand touched the control panel, something that shouldn't have happened. The old locks started to come loose with a groan that sounded almost like it was alive, as if the station was waking up from a long sleep. Metal rubbed against metal. Thick clouds of dust fell from the edges of the door. Light poured through the widening gap, which was impossibly bright after thousands of years of darkness. Ben put his hand up to cover his eyes. He could hear Thauron backing away behind him, and the sound of footsteps quickly hitting the floor. Then, from somewhere in the room beyond, a noise made all of Ben's hair stand on end. Not a roar. Not a scream. Not the sound of something that could hurt or kill you. It was a trill, soft and questioning, that sounded so much like a meow that it broke my heart. Ben stood at the door, his emergency light cutting through the clouds of dust that were moving around. The beam went over what looked like a huge home, which was nothing like the clean hallways outside. Crystalline structures stuck out from the floor like frozen trees. Their surfaces caught his light and scattered it across the walls in rainbow patterns. There were ancient Valorian artifacts all over the place, and the dust on them was so thick that they looked like weird sculptures. The air had an old smell. Not fresh. Like a room that hadn't been opened in a long time. Ben carefully stepped inside, and the debris on the ground made a crunching sound. "Hey." His voice echoed in the big room. "I'm not here to hurt you. I just have to turn on the feeding system." "Shut up." Then, from behind one of the bigger crystal formations he saw something move. The creature came out slowly and Ben's breath caught in his throat. It was like a cat but huge. It was at least as big as a Siberian tiger if not bigger. As it moved, its fur changed colors, going from deep purple to silver to something that looked almost like starlight. The effect was both hypnotic and scary at the same time. But it was the eyes that made Ben stop. There were 6 of them, 2 on each side of its face, and each one reflected his light in a way that made it clear they were aware. There were geometric patterns all over its body that glowed faintly under the fur, like circuit boards under skin. The creature moved forward slowly and then stopped. Waiting. Ben saw other things now. How thin it looked beneath that shifting fur. How some parts of its coat were matted and dull, especially around its shoulders and sides. It moved slowly and painfully, like an animal that had learned not to expect anything good from the world. Something hot and fierce sparked in Ben's heart. Anger. Anger that is pure and right. "They just left you here," he said in a low voice. "Didn't they?" 4 pairs of the creature's ears turned toward his voice. Ben saw something in those 6 eyes that looked almost like surprise when it tilted its huge head. Like it hadn't heard a kind voice in a long, long time. Ben slowly lowered himself to the floor, which made his body smaller and less scary. He'd done this before with rescue animals back on Earth. His neighbor had taken in dogs that were in bad situations, and Ben had helped out a few times. The idea was the same on every planet. Take it easy. Talk quietly. Let them come to you. "Hey there," he said, keeping his voice low and calm. "I know you're scared. I'm scared too though. But I won't hurt you. I promise." The creature moved even closer. Then one more. Even though it was big, it moved like water with each paw carefully placed. Ben could see the muscles moving under its fur, powerful but controlled. "That's all. You're doing a great job." Ben kept talking, filling the quiet with steady comfort. "Ben is my name. I work at this station. Maintenance crew. Isn't this exciting? A lot of broken recyclers and coolant filters." The creature's head moved to the other side. Ben saw that it had 2 tails and one of them moved a little. Ben saw the feeding mechanism on the wall across the room. The design is definitely Valorian, with smooth curves and bioorganic interfaces. But it was coated in dust so thick he could write his name in it. He got up slowly, making every move clear. "Okay, let's get you something to eat. You must be really hungry." He walked toward the machine while talking the whole time. "I bet no one has been in here in a long time. I bet you've been waiting all this time by yourself. That's not right. That's not fair at all." The control panel lit up when he touched it, waking systems that had been asleep for hundreds of years. The machine started to hum, and a series of mechanical clicks dropped nutrient blocks into a dispenser. They looked like thick protein bars that glowed faintly with whatever Valorians thought was food. The creature moved faster than Ben thought it would. It was across the room 1 second and at the dispenser the next, eating with all its might. But even when it was starving and desperate for food, it kept all 6 eyes on Ben. Looking. Assessing. Ben's heart broke a little when he saw it eat. The creature was very hungry, but it ate slowly, as if it had learned to make food last because it never knew when more would come. The creature turned to Ben when the last block was gone. It looked at him for a long time before slowly and carefully moving closer. Ben stayed completely still as the huge head came down toward him, close enough that he could feel the heat coming off of its body. The creature's breathing was soft, measured. Ben could see scars in its fur from this close. Injuries from the past that have healed but are still fresh in his mind. He slowly reached out his hand, palm up, and let his fingers relax. It's okay, he said softly. I'm a buddy. The creature leaned forward and put its head in his hand. The fur was softer than Ben thought it would be, warm, and somehow alive in a way that regular fur wasn't. It seemed to flow under his fingers like water. Ben then felt something wet on his hand. He looked down and saw tears, actual tears, running down the creature's face from all 6 eyes. Oh God, Ben said. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry they did this to you. The creature made a low, sad sound, like all the loneliness of almost 4,000 years compressed into one note. Ben saw that he was crying. He didn't try to stop them. They stayed that way for a few minutes, both human and creature, sharing grief that went beyond species and time. Finally, Ben got up. I have to leave. But I'll be back tomorrow. I promise you that. I'm coming back with more food and we're going to figure this out together. He walked toward the door, but the creature suddenly appeared in front of him, blocking his way. Something happened that Ben couldn't fully explain before he could react. Images flooded his mind like a dam breaking. Valorians fleeing in panic, their ships launching in desperate haste. A weapon charging somewhere in space, growing brighter and more terrible. A choice being made in frantic conference rooms, voices raised in argument and fear. And through it all, one word kept coming back to Ben's mind. It was in a language he didn't know but somehow understood. Guardian. The creature had been left behind as a guardian. But guardian of what? Ben stumbled back as the connection broke, his head spinning. The creature watched him with those 6 knowing eyes, and Ben realized something that made his blood run cold. This wasn't just an animal. This was something far more intelligent, far more aware than anyone had told him. And it had been locked away, alone and forgotten, for 3,821 years. I'll be back, Ben said again, his voice stronger now. I swear to you. I'm coming back. The next morning, Ben came back with half of his breakfast rations stuffed in his pockets. The night before, his boss had been clear. Only one visit. The job was done. Zone 12 was to stay closed. Ben had smiled, nodded, and decided to ignore everything he said. This time, the door opened more easily as if it knew him. Ben said that the creature was waiting just inside, and those 6 eyes got brighter when they saw him. Because of how her fur caught the light, he had begun to think of her as Prism. He gently said, "Hey girl," and took out the protein bars. "Hope you like fake chicken. It's not great, but it's better than those blocks of nutrients." Prism ate more slowly today and didn't seem as desperate. She stayed close to Ben the whole time and sometimes pushed her huge head against his shoulder. Ben had to smile even though everything else was going on because the gesture was so cat-like. Ben got into a routine over the next 2 weeks. He worked the morning shift in maintenance and then went straight to Zone 12 with whatever food he could sneak out. He took blankets from his room to make a cozy place for him and Prism to sit. He brought a portable speaker and played music, from classical to rock music from the old earth. Prism seemed to like the music because her ears perked up at some of the songs. But Ben couldn't get rid of the picture that had filled his mind that first day. Guardian. What was she protecting? He began spending his evenings in the station's archives, going through old Valorian records. A lot of it was encrypted or written in dialects that the translation software couldn't understand. But Ben was patient. He had learned from doing maintenance work that every system had flaws if you looked closely enough. On the 10th day he discovered something. A piece of writing from 4,000 years ago that has barely survived. The translation wasn't perfect, but some phrases stood out. Guardian of the Temple. Weapon of life. A holy trust. At all costs protect. Ben read it 3 times, his heart racing. Weapon of life. That's what they had called her. Ben said the words out loud the next night while he was with Prism. Guardian of the Temple. Is that what you are? Prism reacted right away. She got up, walked to the middle of the habitat and looked right at him. The pictures came back, but this time they were clearer and more controlled. Ben saw Valorians in old armor with ceremonial paint on their faces. He saw robed people blessing Prism, who was younger and smaller. He watched her train, learning how to make those geometric shields and how to sense danger before it came. He saw the temple she had been made to protect. A huge building full of light that felt holy even in memory. After that, the memory changed. Fear. Sirens going off. Valorian ships leaving the station in waves. Prism stood at her post, waiting for orders that never came. The argument in the council chambers, with people yelling in fear and anger. It's too dangerous to move her. If we move her, the weapon could go off. We can't just leave her. We don't have a choice. Close off the area. We'll be back when it's safe. The door is closing. Blackness. No sound. Waiting. 3,821 years of waiting. Ben woke up with tears streaming down his face. They were just scared, he said in a low voice. They were going to come back. But they never came. Ben stood up and walked deeper into the habitat, with Prism right behind him. He found what he was looking for in the middle of the room, a huge cylindrical structure that he had thought was just another artifact. But now, with a new perspective, he saw it for what it was. A vault. The same bioorganic technology that seals everything else Valorian. This is what you're protecting, Ben said. What's in there? Not pictures but feelings gave the answer. Heritage. Memory. Hope. The DNA and cultural history of an entire species, as well as their genetic archive, were saved during a time of war. Everything the Valorians had been was kept safe in case they ever needed to start over. Ben's hands shook as he took out his tablet and started writing down everything. Pictures, notes, and recordings. He needed proof of what he was seeing. At that point, his communication device buzzed. A message from the Valorian High Council that is very important. His blood turned cold. The face that showed up on his screen was old, even for Valorian standards. High Counselor Veshtar with golden bands of supreme authority on his neck frills. His voice was cold. Ben Carter. It has been seen that you have been going to Zone 12 without permission. This is the end. The creature is dangerous and not stable. You must stop all contact right away, or you will be charged under galactic law. Not stable? Ben got really mad. She's been nothing but nice. She has been waiting for almost 4,000 years but no one has come. You left her behind. Veshtar said in a cold voice, you don't understand what's going on. That area must stay sealed. The archive it holds is classified as top secret. Why? What are you keeping from me? The link broke. Ben stood there, looking at his blank screen with Prism pressing against his side. He could sense her worry through their connection. She knew something was wrong. He spent the rest of the night in the archives, going deeper and following leads that other people had clearly tried to hide. What he found made him sick to his stomach. The genetic archive had more than just Valorian DNA in it. It had proof in it. Records of genetic experiments that were done during their old wars. Evidence of weapons made to kill certain animals. The current government had spent thousands of years pretending that war crimes never happened. The Valorians didn't want the archive to be destroyed because it was dangerous. They wanted to destroy it because it was true. Ben was going through the last files when his doorbell rang. He opened it to see 4 armed security guards who all looked uneasy. Ben Carter, the officer in charge, said. The Valorian High Council has ordered that Zone 12 be permanently sealed within the hour. You must stay away from the sector. That's not possible. There is a living thing in there that needs help. Our orders are clear. The area will be sealed off and filled with stasis gas. The creature will be kept alive forever. Ben felt something inside him break. Saved. Like a piece of art. Like an object, not a person with thoughts, feelings, and 3,821 years of lonely memories. No, he said in a low voice. This is not a choice, Carter. I said no. Ben ran past them. He might have had 10 minutes before they caught up or even less. He ran through the hallways, ignoring shouts behind him, and his feet hit the metal floors hard. He got to Zone 12 and hit the control panel with his hand. Ben stumbled inside as the door creaked open. Prism was there right away, sensing that he was in trouble. Ben said, they're coming. They're going to keep you here forever. Put you to sleep and forget about you again. He felt Prism's response through their connection. Not fear. Don't freak out. Just a deep sadness that I had to accept. She had been ready for this. Somehow she had known that hope wouldn't last. The security team came to the door. Ben could see station workers gathering behind them, curious about what was going on. He saw Rita from engineering and other people he had worked with for 3 years. Ben looked at Prism and then back at the people in charge of security. He stepped in between them and stood right in the doorway. No, he said again, this time with more force. I won't let you do this, he said. The chief of security raised his gun, not quite pointing it, but making it clear that it was a threat. Stop, Carter. You're only making it worse. For whom? Ben's voice got louder. For you? For the council that left her behind in the first place? You want to lock her up because the truth she's protecting is inconvenient? She's been doing her duty for 3,821 years. That's when one of the people watching took out his personal recorder and started to record. When the security chief saw the person recording, his face went from stern to worried. Stop that. This is a safe operation. This is a public hallway, the man said. Ben knew who he was now, Chris from the department that recycles water. I'm allowed to make a record here. Chris, don't, Ben said, but Chris shook his head. You stood up for that thing. You need someone to stand up for you. Chris kept his device pointed at the security team. This is going out live to the networks of people. Right now, everyone on Earth can see this. The head of security looked like he had eaten something bad. You're getting in the way of council business. I'm writing down what the council is doing. There is a difference. More people came because of the noise. Rita pushed her way to the front of the crowd, her face set in determination. What's up, Ben? Ben took a deep breath. His hands were shaking, but his voice was steady. They want to permanently close Zone 12. Put Prism in stasis for an unknown amount of time. They want to put her back in jail because she's been alone for 3,821 years and is guarding evidence they don't want anyone to see. Evidence of what? Rita wanted to know. Crimes of war. Experiments with genes. Things the Valorian government did thousands of years ago that they don't want anyone to remember. A murmur went through the crowd that was getting bigger. More devices came out and more recordings began. The security team started to feel more and more uneasy as they realized this wasn't just about one maintenance worker. Ben, you need to move, the head of security said, his voice softer now. I have my orders. I don't want to hurt you, but I will if I have to. Then you'll have to get rid of all of us, Rita said, moving up next to Ben. Because I'm not going anywhere either. Another person came to join them. Then one more. In just a few minutes, 15 people lined up between the security team and Zone 12. None of them had weapons. They weren't trained to fight. They worked as mechanics, engineers, cafeteria workers, and data analysts. But they were strong. Prism moved to the door behind Ben. The geometric patterns on her fur were brighter than Ben had ever seen them. The air around the door shimmered, and all of a sudden, a clear shield appeared, blocking the whole opening. It glowed softly, beautiful, and clearly strong. Ben could feel Prism in his head, and he could feel her reaching out to him to understand what was going on. He sent back feelings of safety, friendship, and people who were willing to stand by her. He felt something through their connection that could have been awe. The chief of security raised his phone. Central, we have a problem. Several people are getting in the way of the sealing process. Asking for help. It felt like the wait would never end. Ben could hear his own heart beating and Prism's steady breathing behind him. There were now about 50 people in the crowd, including some other species. There was a Cronin engineer with them. 2 Delphini from the navigation department. Ben had seen a young Valorian technician around the station before. Her neck frills shook, but she stood firm. Finally, the comms made a noise. Stand down. Don't get involved. We're taking this to the diplomatic level. The next 3 hours were a mess. The Human Colonial Assembly got involved, and their representatives asked for explanations under the Galactic Life Protection Accords. Officials from Valoria tried to say that they had full control over the station. Lawyers from 6 different species began to argue about jurisdiction and past cases. Ben sat with Prism just inside the shield the whole time, while the crowd of supporters stood guard outside. Chris kept recording and sending everything out to human networks all over known space. There were a lot of comments and messages coming in. There were millions of people watching. Rita brought Ben food and water and carefully passed it through a hole Prism made in her shield. You started something, Rita said with a tired smile. The news networks for people are going crazy. People are calling you the Guardian's friend. People are starting to protest on Earth, demanding that the Council protect Prism. I just didn't want her to be alone again, Ben said softly. Well, she's not by herself now. None of us are. Finally, after what felt like forever, the main screen at the station turned on. High Counselor Veshtar came, but this time he wasn't by himself. Along with Chen, the human ambassador, there were representatives from 6 other species. Veshtar looked older than before, and the heavy golden authority bands on his frills made him look older. His voice didn't have the same coldness when he spoke. Ben Carter. The Valorian Council has looked into the matter. Because of the Galactic Life Protection Accords and the attention this issue has gotten from the public, we are willing to let you keep taking care of the Guardian. Ben's hope grew, but Veshtar wasn't done yet. But there is a condition. The Guardian protects a genetic archive that holds important historical data. If this information got out, it could make galactic politics less stable. You are responsible for the archive. You have to decide what to do with it. Ben felt like he had been hit by a physical blow when he heard those words. Choose the future of the legacy of a whole species. Choose whether or not to reveal historical facts that powerful people wanted to keep secret. Decide if getting justice for past crimes was worth the risk of chaos in the present. Prism made a soft noise behind him. Ben could feel her trust through their connection. She was giving him this choice just like she had to guard the archive alone for thousands of years. Ben said, I need time. Time to look through the archive and figure out what's in it. It's time to talk to people who are smarter than me. You have 1 month, Veshtar said. After that, we need to know what you want. The screen went black. Rita put her hand on Ben's shoulder. You did it. She's safe. Ben, on the other hand, didn't feel like he had one. He was very scared. He had somehow become responsible for secrets that could change the course of galactic history while trying to save one abandoned creature. Prism pushed her huge head against his chest, and Ben put his arms around her neck. No matter what happened next or what hard choice he had to make, at least she wouldn't have to face it alone. And he wouldn't either. Ben stood in what everyone now called the Guardian habitat 3 months later. He watched the morning light come through the new clear panels in the ceiling. The station's solar collectors bring in real sunlight. Prism lay in the brightest spot, her fur changing colors like a sunrise, with deep golds, soft pinks and bright oranges. She had put on weight. There were no more matted patches or dull spots on her coat. It was thick and healthy now. The geometric shapes on her body pulsed with happiness instead of defensive power. Ben forgot how dangerous she could be and that she was made to be a living weapon. Most of the time she looked like a big cat who liked to nap and have her ears scratched. Ben, the group is here, Rita yelled from the door. 3 weeks ago, she officially moved to the habitat to help Ben run what had become a full-time business. Ben smiled. Let them in. Prism is awake. The 12 young Valorians from an off-station school entered carefully. Their teacher, an older woman named Sela, bowed to Prism in a respectful way before talking to the students. Sela said softly, what you're seeing here is part of your real history. Not the clean version in your textbooks. During the Great Evacuation, the Guardian was left behind to protect an archive that our ancestors were afraid of. She waited for 3,821 years. Keep that number in mind. Think about what it means to have faith when everyone else has lost it. A girl who was probably 12 years old raised her hand. Can we talk to her? Ben nodded. Slowly. Let her see you coming. Visitors, Prism. Prism raised her huge head and all 6 of her eyes were on the kids. Ben could feel her curiosity through their connection, as well as something that might have been pleasure. She liked the kids. They came with open hearts and questions that were honest. The girl walked up slowly, holding out her hand. Prism smelled her palm and then licked it softly with her rough tongue. The girl laughed, happy and scared at the same time. She's so pretty, the girl said quietly. She is, Ben said. She's been waiting a long time for people to see that. This had become a regular thing over the past few weeks. Groups from schools, research teams and diplomats. The habitat had been completely redone, turning it from a forgotten prison into a real home and museum. The genetic archive was now in the middle room, where anyone could see its secrets but not touch them. That was Ben's choice, which had scared him for a whole month. Let everyone see the archive. Everything. The good, the bad, and the ugly parts of Valorian history that rich people wanted to forget. The news caused the exact amount of chaos that Veshtar had predicted. There is political unrest all over Valorian space. People quitting. Demonstrations. Criminal investigations into the descendants of people who committed crimes long ago. But it had also done something else. Making up. Truth. Young Valorians learn about their history and promise to do better. Other species see their own painful pasts in the archive and realize they aren't the only ones who have had dark times. And through it all, Prism had turned into a sign. Not of the weapon she was made to be, but of patience and forgiveness. Of waiting with hope even when it seemed stupid to do so. Ben sat with Prism in their usual spot, a corner where he had made a comfortable bench after the tour group left. She put her head on his lap, which still looked silly because of her size, but it had become their routine. Rita said, "There's a visitor for you." He says he knew the Guardian's first caretaker. Ben was surprised when he looked up. A very old Valorian came in, moving slowly with the help of a walking stick. His frills were pale from age and his forearms shook a little. But his eyes were clear and strong. He said softly, "My name is Sorath. I was there when we locked this room. I was still a kid then, not even an adult yet. I argued with her about not leaving." His voice broke. "I didn't have the strength to stop it." Prism looked up at him, and Ben could feel their bond as she recognized him. This one came back to her. He was nice, even at the end when things were crazy. Sorath went on, "I felt guilty for 4,000 years. I came to say I'm sorry. And to give you something." He put a small data crystal on the floor between them. Veshmora, her original caretaker, left this behind before the evacuation. She locked it up for whoever would finally take care of the Guardian. She made me promise to give it to her if anyone ever did. Ben picked up the crystal and turned it on. A hologram came to life, showing a young Valorian woman in a military uniform. There were ceremonial paint marks on her neck frills, and tears ran down her face. The hologram said, "I am Veshmora, second guardian of the temple. We are running away and I have failed in my duty. We can't bring her along. The weapon systems she was made to work with are too unstable, and the trip is too risky. We say to ourselves that we'll come back when it's safe." The voice of the hologram broke. "But I know we won't. I know we're leaving her alone and in the dark because we're scared. Scared of our own past. Scared of what she stands for. Scared of the truth she keeps." Veshmora wiped her eyes and looked straight into the camera. "Please forgive us. We have let you down, faithful one. We hope you find hands that are nicer than ours. May whoever comes to you have the courage we didn't have." The hologram disappeared. Prism made a low, sad sound, but Ben felt something else through their connection. Let go. The weight of waiting, of not knowing if she had been forgotten on purpose or by accident, was finally gone. People had remembered her. Someone cared enough to leave a message even though they knew they would never come back. Now Soreth was crying out loud. Prism walked over to him and lowered her huge head until it touched the old Valorian's chest. Ben could feel her forgiveness flow out through their bond. It was a gift freely given to someone who had been guilty for thousands of years. That night, after everyone else had gone home, Ben and Prism sat together under the fake stars. The ceiling of the habitat could now show the night sky of Earth, which Ben had asked for. He liked to show Prism where he came from by pointing out constellations and telling her stories about myths and legends. A young Valorian maintenance worker named Thal, who looked a lot like Ben did a year ago, came up to him slowly. "Mr. Carter? I want to learn about Zenicare and how to do this. Would you teach me?" Ben smiled. "Okay. But first stop calling me Mr. Carter. That's just Ben." He patted the bench next to him. "And the first thing you should know is that it's not hard. You just need to show up. Even when it's hard and no one is watching, you keep coming back." That was all she ever needed. Thal sat there, clearly in awe of Prism. "She's amazing." "She is. But you know what's really amazing? After everything, she can still trust. She can still love. That's the real miracle." The sound of Prism's purr echoed through the habitat, shaking the floor and making the crystal structures ring softly like wind chimes. Ben scratched behind her ears and thought about how normal this had become. Taking care of an old alien guardian felt like the most natural thing in the world. Later, Chris came by with news. "Your interview got 5 billion views. People are now calling this the Guardian movement. Stations all over the galaxy are going over their sealed areas again to find other things that have been lost. Other duties that were left behind." Ben shook his head, still in shock. "I just didn't want her to be by herself." Chris said, "That's why it matters. You didn't do it to get famous or for politics. You were there for someone who needed you." Ben stayed with Prism under the stars after everyone else left. Tomorrow would bring more tours, research teams, and problems with diplomacy. But tonight was just for them, the human and the Guardian, to be together in quiet. "You know what I think?" Ben said in a low voice. "I believe you saved me as much as I saved you. Before, I was just going through the motions. Work, eat, sleep, and do it all over again. You helped me remember what matters. Loyalty. Connection. Being there for the people who need us." Prism didn't respond with pictures. It responded with pure emotion. Thankfulness. Love. Home. Ben smiled as he looked up at the projected stars and saw Earth's constellations shining down on a strange place millions of miles from home. He whispered, "You just needed someone to show up. That's what we humans do best, it turns out. We come. We stay. We always keep our word." Ben felt a warm wave of happiness wash over him as Prism's purr got deeper. She had been waiting for 3,821 years. But the wait was finally over.